Take 4, Jamestown, California, on Instagram. We're going to talk really quick about, I'd like to start off by thanking all my listeners, because I know I have some listeners for the radio show and also maybe the news show. So real quick, I want to thank all the listeners for this morning and yesterday for listening to my radio show during those segments. Totally appreciate it. The next thing I want to talk about is, because I know that I do have listeners, I get this feeling that I have some listeners on the video or audio casts also. So today I noticed, I'm not going to mess around today. Today is no making jokes about Pete Hegseth, no making jokes about anybody today, Joe Biden falling. But I am going to talk about Donald Trump continuing to talk about that he lost or did not lose. And the opportunities you guys have to ask him about his errors versus talking about this crisis, you should be working on grounds of impeachment for the current president, number one. The current president breached his trust by lying to the American public about this crisis while COVID is being imported in the country from several different countries by his doing while we're still under an emergency. Now, either you care about those 541,000 people or you don't care. If you actually cared, you would not be bringing in new cases until this pandemic is done. But what the people have done at Homeland Security, they're allowing new cases and they're actually allowing a future outbreak to come out because of what's happening. Those are grounds of impeachment. So what I recommend is get on it, people. Stop bullshitting, having these segments with Pete Hegseth and my least favorite team after my radio show. I'm not going to criticize people today on the air because it's just not a waste of time. But what I am going to say is this about Fox News Night. I am very disappointed that you people at Fox News have annexed Fox News Night and not cared about the person who's doing the show and the other people who are producing the show. You don't just hurt Shannon by having that show being annexed. You hurt Mike, who was next in line for that show when Shannon wanted to either retire or go on another show. Now, what you guys should have done, and I'm the expert here, okay? You should have put Fox News Night at 4 o'clock when you wanted to replace the story and not have prime time. Instead of having it 1 week, one person, another week, another person. Now, if you're doing that to give someone new an opportunity, don't do it at 4 o'clock. You could do it at 1 o'clock. You could do it at 9 o'clock. This is my opinion, and I hope you guys take this at heart. You have 1 week to reinstate the Fox News Night show where it's at. If you're concerned about ratings, then you would have put Fox News Night at 4 o'clock after special report. But now that you've put prime time there, I like the show. And you have a problem because I want Maria on primetime every night. Number one. Number two, I want Fox News Night reinstated where it's currently scheduled, 8 o'clock Pacific time. And my conclusion is this. If you don't do what I'm asking, you actually are part of the problem. Now, I love Janice Dean to death. My last video asking Governor Cuomo to please resign, that was for fun. It wasn't intended to not be fun. It was so he would Just resign and get it over with. So the poor lady doesn't have to keep going up there and spilling her guts when she should be doing other things with her energy and her time instead of wasting it. I wouldn't call it wasting it, but he should already resign. That's it. My next and last topic is replacing Fox Newsnight with this cancel culture crap show. Now, I'm listening to music from the 1980s, my show, and I played a song today, Oingo Boingo, I'm on the outside, and in some of those lyrics, he mentioned counterculture. That means counterculture was already here 1980, 81, 82, but it didn't emerge. You want to know why it didn't emerge? Now, the best music was played while President Reagan and George H. Bush and W. Bush were presidents. And if you go back to rock and roll, Led Zeppelin had some good years when Richard Nixon was president. The best music. In the early 1980s, everyone got along. You never heard about people being angry at one another. And the reason is President Reagan didn't have shows like the counterculture show on TV. None of that crap. In fact, versus talking about it, you should just end the discussion, not talk about it. Let them talk about it and it'll run itself out. But by you continuing to talk about it, now you got a show. I mean, isn't the weekends, the 5 and then other segments enough for that kind of stuff you want to talk about? How about putting a news show at 8 o'clock like you already have versus having a counterculture show? I'm not trying to bump Greg Gutfeld off the hour, but you would think with the talent and the money that man has, he would at least come up with a better idea and maybe produce a news show. You guys are kind of not even sure what news to report because you guys are actually in some weird form of fashion of news. By you neglecting some news and reporting on other news shows, to me, the counterculture has an argument, a little argument against you people. And don't try to make me moded like you always, oh, you're moded because you're going to put Pete Hegseth on the show after the Focus. Outnumbered, not overtime. Fourth quarter, I call it. So, worry about making a difference by stop having the former president go on TV and talk about the insurrection that he either caused directly or indirectly by saying that he still thinks he won. Please. It's just not good for the party. This is what I'm doing. I'm staying with the party till after 2022. But then I'm going independent. I'm going to use the Republican Party. I need the independent movement to happen. And I'm not doing it to split the Republican Party. I'm doing it because I think Democrats are going to start seeing what's actually happening. And we could actually win the election independent. If we could find a candidate. And we could win the election by getting Democrats to re-register independent. That's what the plan or idea has been from the beginning. And I'm not going to let you people ruin it by forcing people to stay Republican. I'll stay Republican till the 2022s, but after that, like I said, if Donald Trump is the candidate, I will re-register independent that day. If he's even in the mix, I'll consider it. So don't try to moted me. I want another candidate. You guys have a lot of time to get together and get a candidate, please. You need to start talking about solutions versus having the Greg Gutfeld show counterculture at 8 o'clock. You need to show the world why freedom is important. I'm reading these reports talking about losses in wars. And it's always politics. It's because our side's playing both sides, then and now. And they're allowing that side to do what's happening to us. And it needs to stop. So the only solution to all of this is having a balanced budget amendment. Before you guys talk about a filibuster, the independent leader says the only way to save this democracy is by first putting in a balanced budget amendment, because you can no longer borrow against the people's money when you no longer have the collateral, the workforce from us while you're ripping us off. You no longer have the collateral. The bills need to start evening out. And we need to start dealing with this threat of communism in different ways. We can't let what happened in Anchorage happen ever again. Ever. It's humiliating. And they did that because of the media and because of politics and because there's no one on the right that's able to be independent. You guys on Fox, you need to put someone independent right in the middle of this conversation. That's the only way that you guys are going to be able to save your integrity, in my opinion. Those that are currently not sure about what I'm talking about or what's going on, but this is very serious, what's happening. It's not a crisis in the Texas crossings. It's an emergency. It's an emergency because they're importing COVID cases. They're allowing cases to come in. It's not right. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. I'm going to leave the take right there. YouTube.com, Jamestown, California.